Welcome. Doing this video by request. It's about lab layout and design. So I'm going to go over how my lab is laid out and point out some improvements that I would definitely implement in my next lab or other labs that I help set up. So the number one thing with a lab setup is you want to have a cleanable work surface, and one of the best and most readily available is a stainless steel table. I picked this one up for I think $60 off Craigslist locally, and it's sturdy. There's a 6-foot table, which is about what you want. Like 6 to 8 feet is probably the size you're looking at. And the main thing with that is you want to be able to clean it off and get all the dust and dirt off of it and sanitize it, so that way whatever air is coming out of there, there's no dust being kicked up off the surface and getting into your plates or into your bags. One of the things that's important in a lab is not necessary, but it makes it a lot better, is having it sealed. So you can see here that I have simple, this is poly sheathing from Home Depot. Bought for like a 100-foot roll for pretty cheap. It's like 60 bucks or something like that. And I only used about 20 or 30 feet of it to do this. It's a really simple frame of 2x4s. And then I have 2x4 frame doors with simple hardware. I think each door is maybe less than $10 in hardware. And then I just have latches to hold them shut. Really simple, really simple. No, I don't even have seals on them either. It's just frames that are wrapped and stapled and taped. And that helps. The main thing with that is that helps contain the dust or not the dust. It helps contain the clean air that's in here, and it circulates the clean air that's in here. So it keeps re-scrubbing it. So even if you do take the bag and pull it out of the flow, or like let's say you seal it and put it over on your shaking table, and there's a hole in it, and it sucks in air. 90% of the air in here is already like the spore count is very low because you're recirculating. And that also, it'll increase the longevity of your HEPA filters, because your HEPA filters eventually will clog up with sediment. So, well, one, run a pre-filter, and two, if you run it in a cleaner environment, it'll take a lot longer for them to clog up. One thing that I started doing more recently was positive pressure in my lab. And positive pressure is when you're taking outside air and blowing it into a vessel or a room or whatever. So what I have is, I got it off of eBay for about $150. Now they're going for about $300. It's a Lab Products 59015, and it's made for rodent cages, like in a laboratory. And it blows, I think, 90 or 100 CFM. It costs $7 a month to run electricity for me. Might be a little bit more. I'm paying 13 cents per kilowatt hour. And it's really nice. It has a pre-filter thing built into it that's external, so you could just quickly change the pre-filters. And I went and bought like a 10-pack of pre-filters for like 20 or 30 bucks in like MERV 8 or MERV 10 or something like that. So yeah, what that does is that makes it to where the room is constantly being filled with clean air, and then it's leaking out the doors or wherever, and it's just keeping this a sterile room. Even if I walk into the room, the idea is like the air is flowing the other way, so I'm not dragging air in. And that's something that like professional laboratories have. My buddy Jose, he showed me at one of the professional labs that he works in, and they have something similar to that. It's actually a big one like this though. It's a big one like this on the ceiling blowing in, and they have a big flap door down low. It's just a piece of plastic that lets all the air blow out onto the warehouse floor from the laboratory. So other things with layout, one thing that I would definitely do differently would be my power. So as you can see, it's a freaking mess over here. If I was to do it again, I would definitely have more outlets located where I need them. So your outlets, you're going to need an outlet over by your lab, say like right here, like a 4 or a 6 gang even, to run your flow hoods, to run your sealer, and then also to run your cooktop for your PID for your pressure cookers. And I'll go over why it's important to run your pressure cookers and everything in here later. Additionally, you want to have an outlet for your sterilizer, and this is going to be your biggest load, the sterilizer and the sealer. You could actually run them off the same leg, because you're not going to run them at the same time more than likely. You're not going to be sterilizing while you're in here inoculating, because it's going to be hot in here. But yeah, so you just want a different outlet over there. Additionally, I would have the water so it's not up high. I would run the water down low on the ground or close to the ground, say a foot or two off the ground. That way if you spring a leak, you're not leaking all over electrical like it would here if I were to spring a leak. I haven't sprung a leak, but you know, it could happen. So I would definitely run the water down low, water supply down low. I would run hot and cold. Right now I'm only running hot or cold, and then I just started tapping off the hot, going right off the hot water heater, which is this hose right here, and that's for mixing in my substrate. Now that I'm using the mixer, I'm trying to speed it up a little bit with mixing in, and using hot water is definitely the key to that. Additionally, you'd want to have a water line over outside for where your mixing station is, and an electrical for your mixing station if you're using a water meter like I am, which I'd highly recommend because it makes it to where it's very repeatable to the volume of water that you're using per batch. And then additionally in your grow, you know, you're going to want to have a leg of circuitry over there, and then also for your cold storage as well. In my lab, other electronics that I have is a storage fridge for cultures and for spawn, but lately it's just been for microgreens, truthfully. I have some spawn that's going to be going in here today. I have 3 more bags of these. These are from Earth Angels mushrooms, and it's a 10-pound bag. I'm going to be using that today to inoculate 60 bags of Master's Mix behind me. And yeah, so that you need to have a fridge for storing it. I like to have a separate fridge besides the one that I'm using for storing my mushrooms in, because the fact that you don't want to have the spores getting all over the bags. You want to keep them separate. You want to keep these bags, the spawn bags, as clean as possible. I also have an incubation little thing, but I don't have it online right now. It only heats, which kind of stings. So I'm not using it, but that's for incubating bags in the lab. The idea was I was going to put spawn in there, but I haven't been doing it. I've just been putting spawn in my big incubation and then pulling it out and putting it in the fridge when it's ready, once it's colonized. Other things that I have in here are my glassware. You can see I have all my Petri dishes, Erlenmeyer flasks and beakers, and that's mostly for agar. And I use that for autoclaving or for pressure cooking the agar and then pouring it. I'm actually swapping to using pitchers. I ordered some 1-liter pitchers with handles on them, and they are polypropylene, so they can be pressure cooked, and they're actually like lab grade. And that way you have a handle to pour with, and it has a little spout, which is really handy. Other things I have in here are gloves, spoons, which I'm transitioning to for spooning spawn and measuring spawn. Masks. You want to have masks, especially if you're going to be talking while you're working. And then over on this area, I have paper towels, very important for cleanup, on a dispenser. The parafilm, I have different sizes of parafilm. So this is for the bigger 100mm plates. This is for like vials, smaller stuff, smaller plates like 30 or 40mm plates that I have. Spare scalpels, pens, scalpels, scissors, wrenches, screwdrivers, all kinds of random stuff that I need in here to have on hand quickly. And then this is my other, like syringes, cotton tip swabs, more blades, and little alcohol swabs. I also have foil in case I want to wrap something and then put it in the pressure cooker. So yeah, that's some things that I have in here. And so back to with the sterilizer and the pressure cooker. One important thing about having the sterilizer and pressure cooker inside your lab is the fact that you allow cool down under HEPA conditions. So, for instance, I put my pressure cooker, my A941 or my Presto in front of here with the spacers that I use to hold it up and the hot plate right on the PID, and then when it's done I kick on that flow hood once it's done with the cycle. So during cool down it's only sucking in clean air, which means that I could run flasks without polyfill in them, just with foil over the top just to protect it from me touching it. And the bags, if I'm running spawn, I don't have to pre-seal them because any air that it sucks in is going to be clean. That's very important. Same thing with the sterilizer. By doing the cool down and especially transferring the bags when I unload them and put them here, I have an additional measure. I kick on my flow hoods, both of them, while I'm unloading, so that way the air is very sterile. And that makes it to where you lose very little bags. Like I think I've lost 1 bag out of the last 5 or 6 batches of 60 bags, which is a pretty darn good rate, and that's including having interns and students doing the inoculation. So another thing I forgot to mention is the fact that I do have an exhaust up there. I don't know if you can see that. I have an exhaust pipe It's just a normal, like what you would see for a dryer exhaust. And what I do with that is I hook up this blower right here, and it sits on top of my drum in the summertime and exhausts all the hot air out. So that's another important thing you'd want to do if you're getting hot where you're at in the summertime, and you don't want additional heat. Right now I'm using that drum as a heat source. I open the door, the big door, and I let the heat kind of go into the garage, especially using this fan to kind of kick it out and into here. And then what that does is that keeps the temperature above like 60, 55, 60, and I don't have to run a heater. And then I'll run a heater on the other days if I need to, if it's colder. So hopefully that video helped. Oh, one other thing. Sorry about that. I have a step in mind, which I hate. This is a step right here. It goes up about 4 or 5 inches. So what that stops me from rolling this cart next to me, which would be very optimal. Right now I have to turn completely around, grab the block, and inoculate it. So what I've been doing is I just pile them up right here. That's what I did last time. And then I'm inoculating them one at a time now using the measuring spoon, which is a lot quicker. And well, I'll have another video about that following this one. But I would love to have in my next setup, if I can roll this up next to me, and then optimally probably just have another rack to my left to where I just inoculate it, shake it, and rack it immediately, or have a table there with an employee or whoever that shakes it and racks it next to them. So that would be like the most optimal setup, to where you're not doing a 360, not a 180 every couple minutes grabbing bags. So hopefully that video helped out with those that are trying to figure out how to design your lab. This is a pretty small lab. I probably wouldn't go much smaller than this. I can have like 3 people working in here, but it's tight. It's really like a 2-person lab. And I think that's like, for working in a lab, you really want to have at least 2 people, to where you can have 1 person inoculating and 1 person shaking. Even if you're a one-man operation, it's nice to have the ability to, hire somebody or have somebody come out and help you for the day if you're inoculating a lot of bags and shaking them, because it takes just as much time. It takes more time to shake them than to inoculate them, in my experience. So, hey, hopefully that helped you out. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you have any ideas for other videos that you'd like to see, please comment below. Take it easy and keep on mushrooming.